Thank you all for tuning in to the Next Step Gala, especially on this beautiful evening. For those that do not know my name, it's Heather Vasquez, and I'm the Executive Director at Next Step Pregnancy Services. This is our second and hopefully last year of holding our biggest get-together and fundraiser virtually, as I'm anxious to break bread and enjoy your company in person. Let's start the evening off with a prayer from Deacon Craig.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Good and gracious God, we give you thanks and praise for the blessings of this day. We thank you for this opportunity to gather together to support the work of Next Step. We give you thanks for the staff, for all of the volunteers, for the board, and most especially for all the clients that come to Next Step. We ask you to guide the work that you have for us to do through this organization. Help us to be stewards to you in all that we do, especially in regards to the protection of life. We give you thanks for your goodness and your grace. We ask for your blessings as we continue with this year, that we might be ministers to you in all that we do. And we give thanks and praise for Jesus in all of this, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Thank you, Deacon Craig, very much. As a side note, you may have seen the offering on our invitation and registration to grab some yummy Italian fare to enjoy for the show. Gala Italiano has 7 locations for pickup or delivery. Just order online using the NSPS10 code, and you get 10% off, as well as sending 10% of the proceeds our way. Thank you. A few housekeeping notes. If at any time during our event you feel touched or called to donate, please see the link under the screen here on YouTube. Right-click to open a new window and follow the prompts without missing a moment of the event. We'll be updating our progress as we go along. This presentation can also be seen later on our nssupport.org site, where you can also donate at any time this evening and the days that follow under the events page. I hope everyone had a chance to check out and bid this week at the Next Step silent auction, which closed just a bit ago. Thank you to all who donated, and more on that later. Next Step Pregnancy Services began as a dream and a prayer between God and 2 pro-life friends in the early 90s. Back then, they were known as Angelorum, which in Latin stands for Opus Sanctorum, or in English, Work of the Holy Angels, which in itself is pretty awesome. By 1998, the 2 friends were accepted under the Federation of International Life Services in California to operate as a nonprofit pregnancy care center in Washington State. And with the help of Sister Paula Vandager, founder of International Life Services, the Angelorum office was opened in February 1998 on Lake City Way by founders Alice DeJaneiro and Georgine Ulrich. It was located above a pet shop. Yep. Following the need, Angelorum moved from Lake City to Shoreline in 2004. During that time, former director Kathy Dizard came on board, as well as our own Nancy Tribble. And then in December 2009, Kathy and Nancy moved the gang to Highway 99 location in Linwood, next to Sparta's Pizza and Pasta. Yum. And then in September 2010, Next Step was blessed with our first ultrasound machine, donated by outstanding pro-life partners, the Knights of Columbus. Ever champions of life, councils throughout Washington make it possible for clinics like ours to share images of life with expectant moms and dads, making all the difference in the world. Yet another of the abundant blessings of God came in 2011 when Next Step welcomed our first and only, so far, medical director, which enabled us to become a licensed medical facility. For the last, 11 years, he's been the one to read and sign off on all our ultrasounds and medical work, establishing Next Step as a fledgling medical pregnancy care clinic, offering the beauty of ultrasound to our families. And he was with us when Next Step changed locations once again in 2018 to a larger and better location situated in Linwood, where we are today. The building, a gift of support from a pro-life family and company up north, enabled us to serve mortgage and rent-free. Next Step also welcomed our lovely Marta on board to help Kathy that same year. We saw some beautiful pro-life warriors, staff and volunteers alike, come and go, and new faces grace our little office of angels, like Nurse Mary Mullins, our first nurse manager. Blessing upon blessing, we welcomed our current nurse manager, Kim, in October of 2019. Fast forward to 2020. 2020 was a mind-boggling year, as we all know. We saw Kathy retire to spend time with her grandkids, and I came on board as the new director, ushering in a new era of Next Step Life. 2020 had its challenges, but Next Step remained open and serving through it all. With prayer, perseverance, and sacrifice, we came each day, helping each other and helping those families still in need, despite the increasing unrest and uncertainty around us. Next Step saw almost 2,400 visits and appointments, with almost 1,000 of those being first-timers. We performed just over 100 ultrasound scans and 208 pregnancy tests. 136 of those were found to be positive, and some of those women went on to have scans with our nurses and volunteer sonographers, Rosa and Barb. 2021 has been no different in the need for a place a woman can come to be heard, helped, and cared for. In January of this year, Next Step was astounded to be offered another new ultrasound machine, as well as a monetary gift from the Knights, Council 676. Between the stupendous gift and the fact that our two nurses were just finishing up their training for performing ultrasound solo, this was very welcome news. To date, here in June, Next Step has had almost 800 visits and appointments, 66 pregnancy tests, with 42 of those being positive, and 42 scans and counting. As of this event, our nurse, Barb Millett, who you'll see very shortly, is due to be signed off and performing solo scans for our clients, expanding our ultrasound services from just 6 scans per week to 15 scans per week. Being able to offer ultrasounds on demand has been an essential service to allow an immediate picture of a child to a mom who's uncertain, feeling pressure, feeling scared. It's a tangible and real reach from mother to baby, and sometimes dad as well, if we're so blessed. We're almost halfway through 2021, and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel at last on expanding our services. Once ultrasound training is complete for both our nurse and our nurse manager, Kim, Next Step will move to begin training for and offering APR services, abortion pill rescue. Working with Option Line and Heartbeat International, Next Step can move towards becoming, hopefully, a dispensing clinic for women who've started the process of a chemical abortion, which is a 2-step, 2-pill procedure, and have changed their mind and are crying out for help in reversing the abortion process. We have learned that it's very possible, if a woman has only taken the first pill and can be prescribed progesterone within 24 to 48 hours, there is an approximately 65% chance the baby can be saved. Even were it a lesser chance, the attempt to save both baby and mother is in our hands. Next Step wants to be able to offer this new service now more than ever, as the number of chemical abortions rises in our state. Along with APR services, Next Step is eager to also begin offering STD/STI testing and treatment for the community free of charge. Being able to test, treat, and minister to clients who need guidance and care is on our hearts. Teaching them to care for their bodies and helping to create a culture where our young feel valued and respected and respect themselves. That's what we want. None of this can happen without you. Not our ultrasounds or our material goods, not peer counseling or classes, not emergency supplies of diapers or formula, not a place where an expectant mom can come for help, healing, and encouragement. None of this can happen without you. This evening you'll hear from a few folks about what Next Step is all about and how they are part of the pro-life culture. You'll hear from established supporters, Ray and Nikki Gagner, Mr. Todd Chapman from Trans Blue, a longtime supporter and sponsor for the cause of life, and from our nurse, Barb Millett, talking about her experiences here at Next Step and how ultrasound has shone a light on life. We also have an uplifting and spirited special talk from Paralympic skier Ronnie Sasaki, whose own life could have been snuffed out due to fear and uncertainty about physical disabilities. We'll have a brief question and answer segment following her talk, so please ask any question for Ronnie in the YouTube comments below. And then we'll close with a quick word from our longtime but elusive board president, Mr. Bell Kessler, and me, and some news in our silent auction, which closed a bit ago, as well as our cash case winner. Okay, without further ado, here are Ray and Nikki, longtime supporters and ever welcome, followed by a testimonial from one of our wonderful clients.
Hi, I'm Nikki Gagner, and this is my husband Ray. If you know me at all, you know I'm all about having fun at auctions. We heard at church that this organization was having a charity auction to help fund their ministry. I couldn't buy tickets fast enough. That first year we heard speakers at the auction and realized this ministry was about helping women who found themselves in difficult pregnancy situations. And that touched our hearts. We have both been active in the pro-life ministry for many years, and we believe that if you convince a woman to choose life, there needs to be a support system in place to help her meet the needs of her pregnancy and her growing family. Next Step helps a mother get those needs met. We started small in the beginning, buying gently used baby items at garage sales. As we could, we bought diapers and wipes and donated them ourselves, at the same time as trying to meet the budget needs of our growing family. And of course, we attend the fundraiser every year. COVID-19 has kind of put a hitch into the in-person live auction fun, but creative minds have found a way to keep the fundraisers going. We continue our support because organizations like this do not exist if they are not supported. That means people like us, and like you, need to keep meeting these needs tonight and all year.
As you can see, I'm not the speaker of the family, nor the auction nut. Somebody has to carry all the auction items out to the car. Seriously, Next Step is a great organization that deserves my support and yours.
Andrea, and I am a client of Next Step Pregnancy Services, and I just wanted to tell a little bit of my story. About 4 years ago, I came in because I thought I was pregnant. I was too scared to go to my doctor, too embarrassed to go to my doctor. So I came in and sought out some, ultrasound just to confirm that I was pregnant. Yeah, basically came in kind of scared, nervous, felt kind of like I was going to be rejected, not only by God, one, because I was not doing right, and also by my family. It was really scary. It was a really scary time. I was scared to tell my boys. We had enough going on in our lives that was just something we really didn't need to add. So I was able to confirm my pregnancy, and I also got confirmation that everything was going to be okay, kind of eased my mind. From the time I walked in to, the ultrasound with the nurse, and they just, again, put my mind at ease, and it really helped a lot. I was considering other options on what to do with this big surprise and this new fear. But I was able to kind of conquer that with some help. So going further into my pregnancy, I was also able to get other services that were recommended, or whatever I needed for the baby that I didn't have, because at the time I was between jobs. So I just didn't really have a whole lot. So adding this to my life was kind of scary. Anyway, I've continued the past 3 years coming by, whether it's dropping off stuff that I need or that I don't need anymore for my daughter, or getting diapers, and kind of now we're into pull-ups. So it's still just nice to see a nice smile when I walk through the door, and I'm very grateful that I was able to get through that. So that's my story.
What a beautiful story, and not an uncommon one here at Next Step. And thank you to Nikki and Ray for sharing as well. Next Step over the years has had a lot of sponsors and community help, including Hyder Construction, Campbell Auto Group, Mountain Goat Roofing, Shine On Prints and Graphics, Beresford Booth Lawyers, Conthura Auto License, UBS Financial, and more. Our next video, shining a spotlight on life, is one of our sponsors, Mr. Todd Chapman of TransBlue Contractors. Todd shares why he and the TransBlue crew believe in the cause for life.
My name is Todd Chapman, and I work with a company named TransBlue. We have partnered for many years with Next Step, and the base of this partnership is the core values that our company looks to represent, which is God, family, and business. In that order, in that priority. And for number one, when we look for an organization, do they align with these values? We got to look through the filter and the lens of these values when we're looking to partner with any company such as Next Step. And number one, on the God piece, do they look to direct people towards a closer relationship to Him? Second, do they protect that sanctity and family unit in the community there? And then lastly, in the business activities and the normal business activities, do they impact the community around them through what they represent? And we believe Next Step does this and more. Number one, we believe that they have that faith value that we're looking for with any company. And with the family, I think they just blow this away with protecting that unit as a family. And for us, it is about a higher quality of life. And that comes in some difficult decisions that happen and circumstances that are unplanned. And for me and my wife, although we didn't explore the abortion path, we did lose a child in pregnancy, and we understand the emotional toll and the physical toll that can take on a woman and in a family. The thing that got us through that time was a support of other people through our church and through our community. I believe Next Step just provides what alternatives and provides that path of support, meeting the needs of those who are going through this difficult decision and going through this difficult moment in their life. So we look forward to continue to support that value system that Next Step upholds. And then lastly, in the business, that is what their business represents, is improving the lives of those around them. With us looking at strengthening the community around us, do they protect it? Do they provide a safe home, and do they build trust in those relationships? With us as a franchise company, we really look to support our business owners across the country with a long-term lasting relationship. And we believe at Next Step, they not only meet the needs initially, but they look to build that trust. They look to build on that long-term commitment to not only see that they have that alternative, but to meet the needs of the women and the families around them. So we look forward to continue to not only financially support, but through service and any need that we can help Next Step. We look forward to continuing that relationship. We look forward to continuing to align those core values of God, family, and business. So thank you, Next Step. Thank you to your team for serving the community around you, for meeting the needs of these people. The Bible does say that we have an obligation as the strong to meet those who are weak. And so thank you for meeting those who are weaker in those moments, who are facing those difficult decisions. And I would just say for anybody who wants to look to join the Next Step, to really that believe in those values, that believe in the sanctity of life and protecting that family unit, and then directing that path, most importantly, towards a strong relationship in God, please consider partnering with Next Step. We look forward to continuing our partnership with you and to support those efforts of improving the lives of those around you. Thank you.
Thanks to Todd and all the staff at TransBlue and Mission Bridge for their volunteer work over the years. It means a lot to us. Do not forget to click on the link below to help support Next Step in our ministry.
Dear Next Step sisters, thank you very much for helping my sister to get tested and to help her to her next steps in her pregnancy journey. This was very unusual and unexpected situation for her to find out she is pregnant in a foreign country, the US, and couldn't be able to go back to her country, Mongolia, during this hectic time, COVID-19. Thus, she couldn't leave the US for a couple of months. She started concerning about herself, about the baby's health. Thank you again and again for welcoming her and providing free testing and free ultrasound for her. You guys really helped her in this difficult time. Even though my sister can't express her gratitude in English, she wanted me to send this message and her gratitude through me and this letter. Best regards.
Another beautiful client story. You know, one of the staff here that has really made an impact in our clients' lives is our nurse, Barb Millett. Barb started with Next Step as a volunteer back in January of last year and officially became one of the tiny team a year later. Barb does everything from pregnancy testing and counsel to ultrasound scans to sorting clothes to answering phones. She was the final piece of the puzzle we needed to make our team whole.
I started volunteering as a nurse here at Next Step January 2020, and this past January I was hired on as staff. It's been a real privilege to work with the ladies here and serve the women in our community. I, from a young age, always wanted to work with people with cancer. So when I graduated school and got my bachelor's degree in nursing, I worked on a bone marrow transplant floor at what's now known as New York Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. I'm originally an East Coast girl. I traveled west to the University of Wisconsin-Madison while my husband finished grad school, and then we moved out here where I worked at Swedish Medical Center First Hill for the next 14 years. I loved every minute of it. It was just really wonderful. People would often say, "Oh, isn't that so sad? How do you do it?" And I was always a little baffled by that because I enjoyed it. And honestly, really, whenever I met someone, if you peel back just a layer or two, there's some sort of struggle or hardship going on in someone's life. And I've always believed that our struggles are serving a greater purpose. So my faith has always kept me hopeful, and I try to share that hope with others. It became apparent that I could no longer work and keep home life the way it should. It was no longer balanced, and the Lord was nudging me to stop. I needed to spend more time with my family. So I stopped working, and it was nice. I was able to volunteer more at church. I was able to volunteer in my children's classrooms, and just sort of get a sense of what was going on in my community. And that was actually something that kind of saddened and depressed me. Without getting into everything I saw, it just was just different than what I remembered as when I grew up. Somewhere along there, I then picked up a book. I have no idea why. God does. Gosnell, The Untold Story of America's Most Prolific Serial Killer. I had always thought of myself on the side of the pro-life movement, but I didn't know much about the abortion industry. I had only worked with physicians who, if anything, erred on the side of too much preserving life to the point where maybe quality was overlooked. I didn't know that there were physicians who took some sort of sick pleasure in snuffing out what is the miracle of life. And so I looked at pregnancy resource centers and saw Next Step, but I kept thinking, what do they want me for? I don't know anything about this. What do I possibly have to offer? And I resisted, and God kept pushing to the point where I'd see Next Step pregnancy newsletter on my neighbor's counter, and then I had Google Maps take me some far out funky way to my son's trumpet lesson in Linwood. So I'm sitting at a traffic light, and oh look, there's Next Step Pregnancy Center. I said, all right, I'm calling Next Step. I've got some time, I'll do it. And here I am. So when I started here, all I wanted to do was save as many babies as possible, right? That was my mission. And it quickly turned into saving the mamas as well. It became just as much a mission to save these women who really I felt were being sold out by a culture that sort of belittled and devalued the hard and important job of raising kids. It's easy to judge the women who choose to terminate their pregnancy. But I've learned to step back a little and sort of look at what the culture's been telling them and what the world's been telling all of us. For decades, we've been told that there's no objective truth. You can no longer say abortion's wrong. It may be wrong for you, but it's certainly not wrong for everybody. You have to live your truth. You are enough. Truth is now subjective. You see, a life is only valuable if the mother wants it. And so if in a couple weeks she decides she doesn't, then out with the life. And somehow we call this healthcare. So we're several generations into this postmodern worldview, and we're now seeing young women who didn't grow up in a home like I was raised in, or you were maybe raised in. They didn't grow up in a home with a mom and a dad loving on them as they taught them right from wrong. They don't really know what it's like to live in a life-affirming home. And I'm not sure some of these women really have ever experienced love of a family. One day, not so long ago, I watched as a wisp of a girl walk through our door. She was 21. She had a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. I'll let you do the math. She was working 2 jobs. Her boyfriend had broken up with her, and here she was pregnant. She didn't hesitate in her conviction to have this child, but she was clearly overwhelmed. It turned out she was much earlier than she thought, so we set her up for a repeat ultrasound in a few weeks. So that night and every night thereafter, I prayed for this gal. I prayed for God to put a hedge of protection around her. I prayed for God to make himself known to her and her children, and that she just felt his love. About a week and a half later, I got an email asking if we gave out abortion medication from her. And I quickly replied that we didn't, but I was more than happy to talk with her, which is another strange thing. These girls don't want to talk. They don't want to sit down. I'm not sure they've ever sat face to face and had a conversation with someone, but they don't want to do that. Maybe they'll text, maybe they'll email. I did convince her to come back for another ultrasound, so we squeezed her in. To make a long story short, she ended up miscarrying before that ultrasound. I was really thankful that she let me know what was going on with her. And I tried in as few words as possible so that maybe she'd actually read it, that I just thought she was an amazing person. That I thought she was so special for doing everything she was doing to help her family. And that I really cared about her and that she wasn't alone. We need to continue to speak out against abortion, but we also have to find a way to love these women back into God's care. We love because God first loved us. These women don't know God. It's up to us to show them his love.
Thank you, Barb, for all that you do. Let's get an update on our donation total. Oh, keep it up. We're doing really well. Thank you. Next Step was also blessed with a matching donation this year. So if you need any more encouragement, there is that. We're matching up to $10,000. Next up, I am proud to introduce our keynote speaker, Ronnie Sasaki. Ronnie was born with one leg. She believes that God formed her for a purpose. Ronnie is a Paralympic gold medalist, podcast host, author, entrepreneur, and speaker. She inspires audiences to embrace their imperfections and live the life that God intended from the moment of conception. Here she is, ladies and gentlemen, Ronnie Sasaki.
Have you ever wondered what makes a child perfect in his parents' eyes? One day I snuck out of church during the service, and as I walked through the foyer, I heard a baby cry. It drew me in like a magnet, and I found a father holding what appeared to be a brand new newborn baby boy. Well, I asked all of the usual questions like, is he a good baby? And does he sleep all through the night? And in answer, the dad just beamed. And he said, he is perfect. His ears lay nicely against his head. And his nose is perfect for his face. He's got all 10 fingers and all 10 toes. He is just perfect. Now, if I'd have had one of those "that was easy" buttons, I would have pushed it in that moment that I learned what makes a child perfect. But then I began to wonder, if that's perfect, then what makes a child imperfect in its parents' eyes? Is it when the ears stick out like Dumbo ears, or the nose is crooked or too big for the face, or the child doesn't have all 10 fingers and all 10 toes? What about the pregnancy? What if it's an unexpected, unplanned, and unwanted pregnancy? Then what happens with this imperfect little being? When I was born, for a few minutes, I was considered perfect. But shortly after that, my mother began to unwrap me, and she noticed that my right leg was significantly shorter than my left leg. Now, at first, she thought that the bones were likely just jammed up after being in the fetal position for so long, and eventually it would stretch out and become just like the other leg. But nonetheless, she called in the nurse, who called in the doctor, who called in an orthopedic specialist, who declared to my parents, "I'm sorry, your daughter has a birth defect." Now, I don't know about you, but receiving unexpected news of that magnitude is difficult to handle, just as receiving the news of a pregnancy that was not planned is difficult to handle. Now, I will tell you that I was wanted. Abortion was never even on the table while my parents were pregnant with me. So you're thinking, well, this is a little different. And yes, my story is going to be a little different than perhaps you expected for this evening. You see, we're here to support and celebrate life. Not just the life of an unborn child, but the life of the parents who, when they face this unexpected news, often believe that, well, maybe their hopes and dreams have taken a very sharp detour, or maybe they have been crushed altogether. Next Step is an organization that restores that hope, restores the dream, comes along and supports the parents to realize that every child has value. Now, oftentimes it's hard for us to measure that value, and perhaps it's not even our job. You see, I believe that God views every life as an artist views a masterpiece. Psalm 139, 13 through 16 says, "For you formed my inward parts. You wove me in my mother's womb. I will give thanks to you, for I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, and my soul knows this very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the depths of the earth. Your eyes have seen mine unformed substance, and in your book were all written the days that were ordained for me, when as yet there was not one of them." I love the vision that this creates, that God intricately wove each one of us into our mother's womb. Have you ever seen the loom of a master weaver? We have all of these strands that run parallel to each other, and one by one, the artist begins to weave in color and texture. Now, to us at first, this piece of art doesn't look like much, and we may wonder, this is going to be a masterpiece? But the artist doesn't see just the strands individually. The artist sees the entire picture before it's ever completed. And that's how they know which strand to weave in where, because they believe that it is going to be this beautiful masterpiece that's going to be visible for all to share and enjoy. And this is the way that I believe God sees each one of us, as he not only weaves us into our mother's womb, but he plans out all the days that have been ordained for us. Now, I think that if we can believe that we are masterpieces, then we can help and support others to believe that they are masterpieces, and not just themselves, but in a situation that Next Step deals with, seeing that that unborn child is this beautiful masterpiece. I want to share with you an interview that I recently did with my mom. It's only a few minutes long, but it gives you the perspective of my birth from her point of view. Watch this. Mom, thank you so much for coming on today and just talking about my birth and some of the experiences and the feelings that you went through when all of a sudden you were faced with something that was completely unexpected. I know you and Dad got married when you were only 19, and then you had David 10 months later, and then you had me 14 months later. And even though that was not really abnormal for the time, I know that having pregnancies so quickly and then having a child with a disability, it had to be completely unexpected, and it had to be a big challenge for you. How did you deal with it all back then?
I cried. You were the most beautiful baby, and nobody knew anything was wrong until after we got everything cleaned up and we'd unwrapped you, and then they saw that you had one leg that was way too short. And they had no answers.
Because they being the doctors and
the
nurses.
doctors and the nurses, and of course they didn't know what to tell me to do, and so it was a new experience really for all of us in the hospital. In Ronnie's case, she was born without a thigh bone, and so her knee was at her hip, which we found out in the process of appointments with doctors and whatnot. But anyway, I had no support, nobody to talk to, nowhere to even go. And when she was 2 weeks old, this was in June of 1964, and when she was 2 weeks old, my husband was hurt in a motorcycle accident, and we'd gone to the hospital to get his leg fixed, and it so happened that the doctor, the orthopedic doctor that treated him, after we got him situated, I showed him Ronnie and showed the doctor her leg, and it turned out that he was the head doctor at Shriners Hospital in Portland. And he says, "Oh yes, we have children that have had these deformities," and I'd been told when she was born that she would never walk. And he said, "Oh, that's not true. They'll fit her with an artificial leg, and she will walk." And so that gave us some hope at that time. Like I said, she was 2 weeks old. Didn't really do much until she got to be about 14, 15 months old, the age when babies start to walk. And they fitted her with a leg when she was 18 months old. And it only took her 2 weeks to figure the thing out. And she was walking all over the house. I don't know how you make it without support. And at that time, there wasn't much available.
Right.
There's just a lot of emotions that we all went through, and we just kind of had to struggle and pray and ask anybody that we knew that might have some answers.
When you face an obstacle, let's just look at a young woman who may find herself with an unwanted pregnancy, which is challenging no matter what the circumstances are. You had an obstacle when you had a child that had a disability. What do you think gets you through some of those obstacles? What is the most powerful thing that gets you through those times when things just seem impossible?
Belief in God, prayer, family support, knowing what the right thing to do is. And sometimes there are no answers.
Yeah. What about the value of a life? Whether it's a child that comes at the worst time possible, a child who has a disability, what's your opinion about the value of that life and the quality of that life?
I've heard people say that, when they've had a child that has some problems and that child has turned out to be the best thing that God ever gave them.
Mom, I believe nothing happens by accident. And I believe that, before a child is even born, that God has their days all planned out for them.
Yes.
And I don't think it was any accident that he gave me you as my mom. So I love you, and I'm grateful
and you
to have
for
had
me.
you.
You and our family, you just surprised us all through the years, and you still continue to do that, and we love you so much.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing your story today. I have an incredible mom. I think that's pretty clear. Now, when the doctor declared that I was born with a birth defect, he told my parents, as you heard, that I would likely never walk. Well, I am so glad that that is not true, because you see, with modern prosthetics, now I laugh at this picture because, as you can see, this hardly looks like modern prosthetics. Very primitive, but nonetheless, this is how I learned to walk. It had some wood posts and some leather straps with a crutch tip on the end. And it worked so that by the time I was age 2, I was walking everywhere. Because you see, learning to walk was never one of my problems. Learning to love and accept myself because of the masterpiece that God made me to be was my biggest challenge. Because people always ask me, well, what happened? What caused you to have one leg? And now my answer is always, God wove me in my mother's womb. But it was hard when I was a kid because I wanted to be like all the other kids. I didn't like having one leg. I didn't like being different. I didn't like being teased. I wanted to be able to run and jump and play just like all the other kids. And I began to hate having one leg. And I would often ask God, why me? Why me? And I can imagine that when a woman gets that positive pregnancy test that she really was hoping would be negative, perhaps she asked that same question. Why me? I thought to myself, out of all the kids in the world, why am I the one that's been cursed with this leg? Because you see, I did not see it at the time as a masterpiece. Well, have you ever had a dream? I mean, one of those dreams that is just so crazy that you don't want to share it with anybody else because you know they're going to laugh at me? Well, I had a dream, and it's part of the reason I was always asking this why me question, because I was convinced that having one leg was going to ruin my life, because my dream was to become an Olympic athlete. Now, there's a lot of things in this life that kill our dreams. But I was pretty certain that having one leg was going to be the killer of my dream to be an Olympic athlete. After all, I was not a very good athlete in school. And this was confirmed in PE class. I don't know if you remember or how they did it when you were a kid, but in my school, the two most popular kids were the best athletes. And they were chosen to stand in front of the class and pick off the students to be a part of their team. And each one wanted to get the best athletes so that they could beat the other team. So one by one, they began to pick off their teams. I want you, one would say, and I want you, the other would say, and I want you. And pretty soon, the remaining students were the not so desirable athletes. And finally, it would be down to the last two, and I was always one of them. And I think just to save face, the teacher would then assign me and the other girl to individual teams. And I remember walking over to my team, and I could see the look on their faces as they are now calculating what their chances of winning were now that they had the girl with only one leg on their team. Now, when I say walking over to my team, I really mean that I sort of limped over to my team. because I have this very distinctive walk. In fact, one guy put it in what I thought was the most descriptive and kind of funny way. When he saw me walk, he said, "Hey, little lady." He had a kind of an accent. "Hey, little lady, it looks like you have a hitch in your giddy-up." Well, that certainly describes my walk. Now, when I talk about not being a very good athlete, I will tell you that I do like to walk or do what I call the Ronnie run for exercise, which is really more of a skip. So I go out and hit the streets to get exercise, and I feel like I look very athletic. I mean, I'm wearing running shorts and running shoes, and I have a heart monitor on, and I'm just booking along, getting exercise, doing the Ronnie run. Well, can you believe that very frequently cars will pull over and ask if I need a ride? Can you even imagine if you're driving in Seattle or in the suburbs and you see somebody running down the road, do you pull over and ask if they need a ride? I mean, most of us wouldn't do that, and yet people do it for me. Well, most of the time when I'm asked this, I very politely say, "Thank you," but no thank you, I'm fine. Every so often, though, I just have to ask, "Do I look like I need a ride?" Well, the driver silently pauses and says, "Well, as a matter of fact, you do." So you see, being an athlete, that was one of those crazy dreams. When I was a kid, I used to pray that God would fix me. I'd go to bed at night and say, "Please, Jesus, please, can you fix my leg? I don't want a fake one. I want a real one that's made out of skin and bones. And if you skin the knee, it gets a scab on it. Please, God, please give me a real leg." And I would put my hands together and squeeze my eyes tight because that helps, right? And then I would wait. A couple minutes would go by and I'd lift the covers and look down, expecting something miraculous had happened, even though it didn't feel like it, and nothing. And I thought, okay, God just needs a little bit more time. I'm going to go to sleep, and when I wake up in the morning, I'm pretty sure I'm going to have 2 real legs. And when I woke up in the morning and yanked the covers off, expecting something miraculous, there would just be 1 regular leg and 1 little short, stubby leg. You see, I think often our greatest growth and rewards come not from having those obstacles or those challenges taken away from us, so we don't have to deal with them anymore, but having the opportunity to go through them and to go over them. Healing looks different for so many people in so many different ways, and often the healing that we want is not the healing we're given. We have an opportunity to go through it and to go over it. When I was a senior in high school, I received a phone call one day from a woman named Jan. And she said, "Ronnie, would you like to learn how to ski?" Wow. I had wanted to learn how to ski for quite some time and had been trying to find an instructor. Somehow Jan got a hold of my name, and it seemed like she just called me out of the blue. I was so excited to learn to ski for a couple of reasons. Number one, I thought it was something that I could be really good at. I had seen some one-legged skiers on television, and I thought to myself, now I believe that I could do that. But the main reason I wanted to learn to ski is because all of the cool kids in my school were skiers. And how I knew this is because every Friday we had ski club, and the big diesel bus would roar into the parking lot as the day ended, and all of those students would load all of their gear into the luggage compartments underneath. But during the day, you could hear the ski club people as they walked down the halls, because on their ski jackets, which they were wearing, by the way, was lift tickets. Not just one lift ticket, but lots of lift tickets. And that's how we knew who the really cool people were. You see, back in the olden days, when you got a lift ticket, there was a kind of a U-shaped wire wicket that you would run through the zipper and put this paper ticket on there. Nowadays, the tickets just fit in your pocket and are electronically read. But back then, it was these wire wickets with the tickets. And as the students walked, they clanged together and you could hear them coming from a mile away. And I wanted a lift ticket so that everybody would know that I was one of the cool kids. Well, Jan and I made arrangements to meet up at the mountain, and she got me fitted with all of the equipment and the gear that I would need. I had a ski and a boot and these things called outriggers, which were really the only adaptive equipment that I used. They were like forearm crutches with a short little ski tip attached to the end. We met up at the mountain, and I was so excited as she taught me how to put everything on. And I said, "When do I get my lift ticket?" And she looked at me and said, "Ronnie, you're not going to get a lift ticket today." I says, "What? I thought we were here to learn how to ski. I just spent all this time learning how to put this gear on. What are we going to do?" And she says, "Well, today I'm going to teach you how to fall." I said, "Fall? I already know how to fall. Do you know who you're dealing with? I am an expert at falling. If there is one thing that I can do probably better than anybody else is fall. I have been doing it since I was a kid. I fall down and I get back up. I fall down and I get back up." She says, "Ronnie, you don't understand. With skiing, it is so important that you learn how to fall safely because you will fall and you don't want to get hurt." She says, "Furthermore, you'll ski with a lot more confidence if you know that when you do fall, you're not going to get hurt." And she says, "And furthermore, probably more important than falling safely is the ability to get back up." Well, I am so glad that Jan taught me that on that day, because out of everything that we worked on, it was the only thing that I perfected, because all I did was fall down and get back up and fall down and get back up all day long. And by the afternoon, I was so exhausted. Those outriggers were these long extensions from each arm, and I felt like they were skewers pinning me to the ground. I was so hard to pull myself back up. And I realized that strengthening my get-up muscles was probably one of the most important things that Jan could have taught me. You see, Next Step is a lot like Jan. When somebody walks through their doors, they teach them how to fall safely. And they teach them how to strengthen their get-up muscles. Because I think that you would agree with me that our ability to get up after a fall is probably the most important thing in allowing us to go through, to go over the obstacles and the challenges that we are faced with. And to know that a person is fully supported. I had Jan right there teaching me and helping me. And these parents that come into Next Step, they're fully supported with something to help them and guide them and teach them and strengthen them as they get back up. 2 years after the first call to learn how to ski, once again, Jan asked me a very important question, and she said, "Ronnie, would you like to enter your first race?" Well, I didn't have to think long about that one. No way! I am not good enough to race. I can't even make it down the hill without falling. You taught me so well, and I'm so good at it. I don't think I can ski an entire run in a race. Well, sometimes all it takes is one person to come alongside and remind us that we are stronger and that we are more capable than we thought we were. So I decided, after some support and encouragement from Jan, to enter my first race. So I traveled up to Snoqualmie Summit And there I saw many other ski racers just like me. There were those with one leg. There were skiers with no legs. There were skiers with one arm or no arms. Those that were paralyzed that skied in mono skis or sit skis. There were even blind skiers. Can you even imagine what it would be like to ski when you can't see where you're going? They have a guide that hollers out commands, turn left, turn right. What I saw in this group of people was a place where I fit in. It was suddenly a group where everybody understood exactly the same hopes and dreams that I had had. And we could relate to each other. And I think that's really important. And I decided then and there that ski racing was the sport for me. Well, when I graduated from college, I packed up my bags, moved to Colorado, got a job at Kentucky Fried Chicken. Mom and Dad were so proud of that one because I wanted to join a training program that was designed for disabled racers. And it was in Winter Park, Colorado. Now, when I first got there, what I realized was it wasn't just as important to train my body, but I also got to train my mind. Because you see, I was used to coming in last. I was used to being the last one chosen for a team. I was used to people pulling over and asking if I needed a ride. So I had the opportunity to begin working on my mind as well as my body because I had to see myself as capable. I had to see myself as a winner. I had to see myself as worthy. And this is one of the things that I love about Next Step because they understand that a pregnancy is not just physical. It doesn't just take place in the body, that it is also a big part of the heart and the mind. And they value this and they work with people so that they begin to accept and walk through doors that perhaps they may not have even considered before. Here's a picture of me skiing, and it's going to cover up my whole face. When you train the mind and the body and the heart together, then success and winning becomes possible. Well, on the morning that my dream finally came true, if you had been there standing at the bottom of that ski hill in Albertville, France in 1992, there's a couple things that you would have noticed. The first was the weather. It was terrible. A storm had blown in. Any snowflakes hitting exposed skin felt like BBs. You could hardly even see your hand in front of your face because the visibility was terrible. The weather was crazy. The second thing that you would have noticed is the Olympic flame that stood at the bottom of the race course, continuing to burn in spite of the weather that threatened to snuff it out. It stood there like a beacon, maybe because it was one. Well, what you wouldn't have noticed was me standing in the starting gate. 1, 2, I was looking down at the course that I could barely even see because of the poor visibility. And the racer official said, "Racer ready?" And I stood there and thought, is that a question? Because all of a sudden, all of the fears, all of the doubts began to infiltrate my mind. And I thought, do I have time to go to the bathroom right now? I wondered, am I good enough? Was all these years of training and preparation enough for this moment? Am I going to be able to do this? Well, I didn't have time to contemplate a whole lot more doubts, thank goodness, because the beeper started. Beep, beep, beep. And I knew it was time to break that starting wand and begin the race that would determine my fate for that day. I pushed out of the start and immediately began to feel as if I was in the middle of a bobsled course because the new snow had been pushed off to the sides and it was deep and I was skiing in this trough. But nonetheless, I pushed ahead, turn after turn. It was a race after all, and the goal was to go as fast as I possibly could. Well, somehow as I rounded one of the final turns before the finish, my right arm got stuck behind me and it got hooked up in all of that deep snow and I slammed to the ground. I fell out of the race for that day. I felt like such a failure as I pulled myself off of the race course and sat there for just a few minutes. Tears. Everything that I'd worked for. And there I was, a failure. But then I remembered Jan. All of the support and the teaching that she had provided for me. I remembered that first day of skiing when she says, more importantly, learn how to get back up. So I pulled myself up and realized there were 3 more races at the Paralympics. I had another chance. I could sit and wallow in my self-pity and feel like a failure, or I could use those muscles, pull myself back up, and have another chance on another day. The next race of the Paralympics, when the race official said, "Racer ready?" there was no room for doubts in my mind. I knew what I had to do. When that beeper started, I jumped out of the starting gate and began turn after turn, completely focused on the finish line, knowing the task at hand. I was wearing a full face helmet that caused my breathing to be magnified in my head. I kind of sounded like Darth Vader to me in my own ears, like, so all I could hear as I was racing was the sound of my own breath as I am charging toward the finish. I felt at any moment as if I was going to be completely blown out of the course, out of control. Now, I think it's kind of ironic, isn't it, that as parents, oftentimes when we're raising our children, we have those same feelings that we are completely out of control, as if at any moment we could blow out of the course completely. That's how I felt. And yet somehow I managed to just hang on, and I crossed that finish line, and I looked up at the reader board and saw my name bumped to the top of the list. And after all of the ski racers followed behind me, my name held that first place position. And on that day, the second race of the Paralympics, I won a gold medal. A dream that I had had, that I thought was impossible, had been restored and became possible, not in spite of my leg, but because of it. When our dreams are restored and that hope steps back in, anything is possible. Now you're here tonight because you believe in a force that's bigger than you are. I understand. Life is not about getting medals and winning races. I will say one thing I love about racing is there's a distinct start and a distinct finish. They draw a line in the snow at the finish line, so when you cross over it, you know the race is done. And then you get immediate results. You know if you've done good, you know if you've been slow, you know where you stand. But there's no such finish line in pregnancy. There's no such finish line as in parenthood. The decisions that a person makes when they first find out that they're pregnant, they last a lifetime. So just as having one leg is forever, getting that pregnancy test positive is forever. It goes on and on. And that's why it's so important to support an organization like Next Step, because they come alongside and they help clarify the decisions that are made during that time. Because you see, we never know the impact, not only that we can have on another person's life, but the impact that that person's life is going to have on the rest of the world. because the circumstances of our birth do matter. This poster is from the Paralympics. And I love this bird. It looks like it's got broken wings. And this was our mascot, or the logo that appeared throughout the entire event. It even appears on the medal. I'm not sure that you can see that. It looks like it's got these broken wings, and perhaps it's not very politically correct to imply that individuals with disabilities are somehow broken. But I believe that all of us have something about ourselves that we see perhaps as broken. We all have something about ourselves that perhaps we would change if we could. Maybe we think it's destroying our dreams. Maybe we think it's destroying our hopes. But if Next Step can just reinstall this into the life of one person, we never really know what's possible, because the doors get blown open so wide for a child, for its parents, to fulfill their goals and their dreams. Kind of reminds me of that country song. With a broken wing, she carried her dream, and you ought to see her fly.
Wow, such an inspiring story. Thank you very much, Ronnie.
Thank you. It's great to be here tonight.
Great, welcome. I have a few questions for you.
Okay.
Well, first off, do you still ski?
Yes, I do. I ski for fun. I don't race anymore. And I was told by one of my coaches who I connected with a few years back, she said I ski very elegantly now, which is another word for very slow. I'm pretty sure.
Great. What was the best part of being a member of the U.S. Disabled Ski Team?
It was belonging to something. First of all, something that was bigger than myself. And it was feeling like I was actually a part of a team, something that I'd wanted so desperately my entire life. And so being welcomed into that team, earning my spot on that team, not only was it a dream come true, but it was that place where I knew I belonged.
Makes sense. Let's see. What did you do after retiring from ski racing? What are you doing now?
Well, it's great that we're here at Next Step, because I was actually 2 months pregnant when I won my gold medal in the Paralympics. So I retired from ski racing and went on to have 3 children in 5 years. So that's what I did, was start my family.
All right. What would you say to someone who's facing a huge obstacle and asks for advice? What would you say?
Well, we've heard it over and over tonight. I think turn to God first. There's just, my faith in God is strong. I believe it's what's carried me, year after year throughout my life. And then support from others who have been there, others who can relate, who can come alongside and just hold us sometimes when we need that extra boost, I think is absolutely critical.
Well, I got one more for you. This is a
Okay.
little weird one, but would you rather be missing an arm or a leg?
I know, that's such a funny question, because I get asked it here and there, and of course I'd rather be missing a leg, because I love my arms, and I don't want to give up my arms. I have friends who are missing arms. I have friends who are missing legs. I think we all adapt to what we're used to. What we end up with is how we adapt.
We do.
Which is also a really critical thing, obviously, with all of us, is to be able to adapt what's going on either in our bodies or in our lives. So definitely for
Very
me,
much so.
leg.
Well, thank you so much for being here tonight and sharing your story with us. It was really inspiring. Thank you, Ronnie.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's just a joy to be here.
Want to help? Donate on the link below or stop in. We love to have visitors. As we near the end here, I want to share one more client story, and then we'll hear from Mr. William Kessler, Next Step Board President, with a few words.
Next Step was an amazing program, a major advantage for my entire family because it helped me out along the way with the things that was needed for my unborn baby at the time. And when I was introduced to the program, at first I was uneasy because I'm a hard worker and I didn't know how to reach out because I was embarrassed. However, when I first called Next Step, they were amazing. They actually was really kind. They actually told me to come in right away. Anything that was needed for my infant baby or my unborn child, I was able to get as far as formula, Pampers, crib, bassinet, stroller. It was beautiful. Being an African American woman, I experienced some racism. And when I came to Next Step, it was just nothing but love. And they didn't look at me based on the color of my skin. They looked at me as a person and that I needed help. And that's what matters. And they showed me that love is the most important thing in this world, you know, loving all things like you want to be loved. So that opened me up to feel comfortable with coming back, not just coming back, but I was able to build a relationship with them as well. So I definitely want to say Next Step, I really, really appreciate you guys. And I also appreciate the people who donate to the organization for people who's in a disadvantage like myself. It's a blessing. It's a miracle. And I do thank you so much. God bless.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Bill Kessler, and I'm the Next Step Board President. Thank you to all of our presenters for your sharing your stories here tonight, and thank you to everyone for joining us. We greatly appreciate your past support of Next Step, and especially your support here this evening as Next Step is navigating the economic difficulties of this past year. As you know, Next Step is a small grassroots nonprofit. We don't receive any government money. We don't receive money from large private organizations. There's just local community members like you and me. And we rely on your support to continue the good work of the ministry. So please do give generously tonight. Again, thank you for being here. The website is nssupport.org. You can go directly there and donate via that link. Please do give generously. Again, thank you. God bless you. Good night.
Thank you, Bill. One quick note, Next Step Pregnancy Services is teaming with St. Pius Church in Mountlake Terrace for a barbecue on Sunday, August 22nd. All are invited. More details will be sent out soon. Here we are at the end of the show. Your gifts keep coming in. We are at, let's check that tally. Well, there you have it. Wow, that's terrific. So we did have our grand prize winners for the cash case as well as the Hawaii trip. Keep going. Well, so I'm pretty sure our Hawaii trip winner, Mr. Arsenault, and we do have a winner now for our cash case, so that's great. Congratulations to our grand prize winners, and thank you all for being so generous. Again, thank you to all who joined us and or bid at the auction. Check out the link to this presentation on our support site, nssupport.org. Donations are always welcome. Thank you to Ronnie and all our speakers tonight, as well as our staff, our volunteers, our board, community sponsors, churches who plan supply drives, baby bottle campaigns, to Modio Media for doing the production, and all those groups, businesses, and individuals who contributed to the silent auction, and to you, our supporters, who care enough and believe enough to say yes every day to a culture of life. Next Step's work for life is not possible without you. Every little bit makes a difference. Come and see us, and I pray we can get together soon. Thanks and good night.
Are we done?